How do I keep my Leaving Cert student motivated now that the Leaving Cert has been cancelled?
The Leaving Cert student in my house has become incredibly demotivated now that the Leaving Cert has been cancelled. I think this is a very pressing and current issue for 60,000 families, because there are 60,000 students out there currently who have now had to endure lockdown, away from school, study at home, postponement of the Leaving Cert, and now the new news that the Leaving Cert is cancelled. This has unsettled, and this has unsettled their psyche for sure. And the amount of the rumour mill, because the Department of Education and Skills, while they were dealing with this issue, were quite silent about it. The rumour mill has been incredible. So the pressure on teenagers doing Leaving Cert this year has been extraordinary. There's no doubt about it, and it's been remarkable. How would I keep my Leaving Cert student motivated now that the Leaving Cert has been cancelled? I would say the first thing is to sit down with them and go through the stats. The statistics will tell you that predictive grading generally over predicts. So there's a positive around predictive grading. So now to sit down with the CAO and go through all the opportunities. Now is the time to strategize. Now is not the time to lose all interest in the Leaving Cert and feel that demoralization and to be unmotivated and to be kind of lethargic. Now is the time to strategize, look at all your options, sit down with the student in the house and go through the CAO with them and say, let's say Leaving Cert you generally improve by 10%. Let's say from the mock you went up 10%, and then with predictive grading it goes up a further 10%. Let's look at your mock and see if you got 20% more, what kind of courses are open to you. Let's say you get what you got in the mock, what courses are open to you. Students have a very, I would say, unhealthy knack for being so linear in their thinking. They say, I want to go to UCD because that's their peer group, or I want to go to Trinity because that's their peer group. So if they're going to Blackrock College, they generally all tend to go to UCD. And if they're going to Gonzaga or whatever, they all tend to go to Trinity. So it's very important to think and to help broaden your child's mind around the course. They might want to do something like, pure economics in Trinity, and you can show them that, you can get that in DCU, you can get that in UCD, you can get that in Maynooth, you can go to Cork, you can come back to Trinity as a master's student. So it's very important that they broaden their horizons, and now more than ever is the time that they have to strategize. It's important that they take a break. I would say the key things for Leaving Cert students: exercising, good healthy diet, good sleep pattern, and strategizing for the next couple of months around what they're going to do when they get those results.
What can be done about changes to teenagers' sleeping patterns?
The teenager in our house is going to bed when they want and getting up when they want, and this is causing huge problems in the family. I think this is a problem that's facing a lot of families with teenagers currently in Ireland. Due to lockdown, routines and kind of habitual behaviours that teenagers would have done, and the regimented behaviours that teenagers would have been engaged with in relation to going to school, has completely collapsed because of school being cancelled for the last 2 months. So sleeping patterns have collapsed. And as a result of this, huge tensions have arisen in the family. And it's very important to know that a family that operates with an inverted hierarchy is going to be one that's going to have a lot of conflict. You cannot allow your teenager to dictate to you how they want to live within the family. There has to be rules and there has to be boundaries. So the first thing I'd look at is what is keeping your teenager up, what is impacting on their sleeping pattern. And I would say if you look at it, you probably will see technology or devices is in there, right? And I think devices and gaming has really impacted on teenagers' sleeping patterns. Devices emit blue screen, light, which impacts the hormone melatonin. This interrupts sleeping pattern. And gaming will keep a teenager up all night long if they're engaged in an activity of playing games with their friends, which they are at the moment. Because gaming is an unusual one. There's a bit of a paradox with it. It's the fact that it's a solitary activity, but yet they're connected. So they're connecting to each other through the games. So as a family, I would say get a policy around technology. This will be met with resistance at the start, but you have to be resolute about it. Everybody in the family has to follow the same rule. You can't have, teenagers have a heightened sense of hypocrisy and injustice. And if one is allowed to game and one's allowed on their device and they're not allowed on their device, it's going to cause huge problems. So it's a policy that allows every family member to follow it and therefore bring some harmony to the family. The most important thing is that you get your teenager back into a sleeping pattern, because they will be going back to school, and if they've been living in this chaotic way of sleeping for 2.5, 3, 4 months, they're going to find it very difficult to go back into the school system and to get up at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning to go to school. So it's important that you have a very fair rule in the family that says after 10 o'clock or half 10, there's no devices, there's no gaming. So I would remove games and devices out of the room. The teenagers will fight this for sure. They'll say they need it for their alarm clock. You provide them with an alternative source, and everyone's phone goes into one place. That's what I would say about sleeping patterns in teenagers at the moment.
How do you manage the strain on your relationship when parenting in lockdown?
I'm worried that after COVID-19 and the stresses and strains it has placed on my relationship with my partner, that when we come out of lockdown, our relationship won't survive. I think we can all relate, and this question resonates with many of us who are in a couple and have children and have had to endure 2 solid months of homeschooling our children, of motivating them, and also with all the uncertainty around COVID-19 and the very negative reports we hear about the economy and about the death rate and all the mixed information we hear. It's placed incredible strains on us, because when you think of modern life, you think of your relational life, it's quite diluted with the busyness of our lives. And in the last number of months, we've had to live at home in quite difficult circumstances. I think the first thing I'd say to a relationship is try to find moments where you can be on your own. It's very important that you plug out of the house and you get a moment to yourself where you can think about nothing else but just in that time. For an hour during the day, you get away from the relationship, you get away from the children, and you go up to your bedroom, wherever it is, go for a walk, go for a run. You plug out of everything and you get away from it all. That's very important. A very healthy family allows for you to be a part of it, and separate from it, a relationship is the same thing. And it's important in the evenings to sit down with your partner and to talk about everything that's going on. And in that question, I generally hear in my own clinic, and what I've heard over the last 2 months, women have been charged with incredible responsibilities, and women have taken on overwhelming roles and responsibilities in the family, homeschooling their children, all the chores around the house. I mean, that's what I've noticed in the last 2 months. It's COVID-19 has probably illuminated a lot of the inequities that exist in the family. And that's what's probably been brought up here. And it's very important that you sit down with your partner and you have a conversation around the inequity and around what's been laid on your shoulders, because that is too much for you to bear. And it's important that you have that conversation. I think this is a time for us to reconnect with each other. I think it's a time for us to reevaluate what we want in our relationship. And COVID-19 has a silver lining. Perhaps this might be the moment where we let go of some of the stuff that we've been laboring with, and now we say, when we come out of COVID, this is how I want to live in this relationship. So I think this is an opportunity for relationships and for couples to sit down and have a conversation, to find space from each other, to go for walks together, to take turns, but to have a very, very clear idea about what your role is within the family unit. And I think it's very important that women do not take on too much responsibility, because inequity never breeds contentment, it breeds resentment. And I think this is an opportunity for couples to reconnect with that earlier romantic self and have conversations around that.
Family therapists work with individuals, children, couples and families. You can find a therapist by visiting familytherapyireland.com. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel to be notified of future FTAI videos.